Welcome into First and Goal, presented by the Clutch Team. My name is Kyle Eaton. His name is Connor Hogan. He's got 4 questions, 4 downs to answer. So let's get right into things. We got week 2 action here. I think we'll start with some Kyler Murray. So this past weekend, Cardinals Vikings play a really close game. Kyler Murray shines very brightly in that game. Connor, what was your reaction to Kyler Murray?
Kyler Murray looks really, really good through the first 2 weeks of the season. First game, week 1, a blowout win against the Titans. That whole team looked great. Kyler Murray looked really good, 21 for 32 for 289, 4 touchdowns and a single pick. Comes in week 2, and it's the Vikings, 29 for 36 for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns and 2 picks. The biggest takeaway for me about Kyler Murray playing these first 2 games of the season, 1, he's got almost a 74% completion rate, and he's sharing the ball pretty well, given he's got a great group of receivers down there in Arizona now, led by D-Hop. AJ Green's playing really well, and a few other of those guys are doing great. Also, huge thing for me on Kyler Murray, he only has 10 rushes to start the season. 10 rushes. He's had 5 in each of the first 2 games. He rushed for 20 yards in week 1 and 31 yards in week 2. Coming from where he has been, where as soon as anything happens, he's gone out of the pocket and taking off. The fact that he only has 10 rushes through 2 games and has put up the throwing numbers that he has, wildly impressive. Shows that he's grown a lot. And, I mean, that offense in general has just really kind of stepped in more of that air raid system that Kingsbury likes.
Yeah, I think Kyler Murray's been really impressive. Like you said, that's nothing new. I think everybody can agree with that he's been super impressive. He has at least 1 or 2 plays every game that you can point to and say that was incredible. And that's something that we only see in the truly special quarterbacks. It's actually how you can determine whether or not a quarterback is special, is does he have something you can point to and say that's special? That's something extraordinary. This is why we have such a big issue with quarterbacks like Baker and Jimmy Garoppolo and Derek Carr. You know, these guys are all perfectly fine quarterbacks. They all get the job done. They'll all win you games. You know, I think Baker's on the high end of that spectrum, and Derek Carr's kind of with him, and Jimmy G's on the low end of that spectrum. But still, they're perfectly fine quarterbacks. They don't do anything particularly special, and that's why people are always looking to say, oh, they're overrated, they're overhyped. Ryan Tannehill is an example of this since he's joined Tennessee, where he doesn't do anything spectacularly, but he's a solid quarterback. And there's nothing wrong with being a solid quarterback, but how you determine the truly special quarterbacks is by the traits that they possess. Is there something you can point to and say, that's incredible, that's spectacular, that's something that you don't see very often in the league? He's unlike anything we've ever seen. He's completely unique. He has the rushing ability of Lamar. Not quite Lamar. I would say Lamar's still the better runner, but Kyler Murray's right up there in escapability and how he maneuvers and his quickness. But he's got super high-end arm talent, super high-end. He can throw the ball long. He can throw it with accuracy. He can zip it in there. He's truly a unique player. I don't think I've ever seen anybody like that in the NFL, at least. We've had the Michael Vicks that move around, but Michael Vick wasn't nearly as accurate. We've had Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is not nearly the arm talent that Kyler Murray is. He makes some questionable decisions from time to time. He's kind of got to learn when to throw it away. He's reckless with the ball. He takes risks a lot. But that's just something, we've talked about this before. It's something you see when you have an electric player playing quarterback. But yeah, he's been really special, really special. And I am wholly impressed with how the Cardinals have looked. Connor? Looks like we got some difficulties.
Yeah, especially with that. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay. So, especially with that offense, it fits into Kyler Murray's play style. Probably he's in that top echelon of great head coach offensive system quarterback matches that you could possibly have in the league, right? So you have like Kyler Murray in that air raid with Cliff Kingsbury. You have Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, again, very air raid, similar offense. Like you kind of need that coming in with these new quarterbacks now, because systems are getting so complex that you almost have to build an offense first and then go find your quarterback and be, okay, this guy can play in our system. Because we've seen it before where teams will have a system and then they go out and get a quarterback and they're like, okay, we want to build an offense because of this guy. And then it just doesn't end up working because you have the wrong talent already there. Like you don't have, you get a quarterback that runs RPO a lot. Like same thing with Tennessee, right? Like they get Ryan Tannehill, not anything special, and they base their whole game around Derrick Henry, right? That offense is not built around Ryan Tannehill. I think everybody knows that. So, but Kyler Murray, that offense is built around Kyler Murray. Like he is the linchpin of that offense, and he's showing it now that, yeah, I am built for this offense. This is exactly how I'm going to succeed in the NFL, and this is just where we're going to go with it, right? You have D-Hop, Green, you brought in guys who are going to make him better because that is the offense you're running.
Yeah. It's like you said, it's the difference between special and good is that right there that you just said. Ryan Tannehill, the offense isn't built around Ryan Tannehill. It's built around Derrick Henry. You're running the ball down your throat, and Ryan Tannehill can succeed off of that action. Browns are the same way. The offense is not built around Baker Mayfield. It's built around a strong rushing attack, and Baker Mayfield succeeding around that. There's nothing wrong with having an offense like that. You can win in the NFL with an offense like that. You could argue, I mean, I know it's a different sort of thing because Tom Brady, the New England offense was kind of built around, the whole New England system was built around Tom Brady. But the only time that you can really point to and say this offense is built around Tom Brady was the 2007 season and the time when they had Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez at tight end, and you just throw it to the tight ends all down the field. But outside of that, the Patriots were pretty well known for a strong rushing attack. Never really had that number one guy, but same scenario where it's kind of built around the rushing attack. A little different because Tom Brady's Tom Brady, and everything is going to go through him anyways. But similar scenario to this where there's nothing wrong with having an offense built like that. You can win in the NFL like that. But like you said, the difference between the good and the special is that the offense is built around them. Lamar, the offense is built around him. And you can point to something with Lamar. His rushing ability, his ability to avoid potential sacks and get down the field, unlike anything we've ever seen. Patrick Mahomes, I mean, just all sorts of special. And that offense runs through him. Drew Brees was deadly accurate. So they never really had like deep threats on the Saints, but they would have those possession receivers and running backs, and they would go through that. Who else am I thinking of? Aaron Rodgers. Not so much in Green Bay. He's had his gripes about that, but they've always had. That offense goes through Aaron Rodgers, and you can point to special with that. Special players do special things. The one question I have is that the Cardinals' offense is electric. They've got Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins. What's that rookie's name? Rashawn Moore? Moore.
Yeah,
Is it
Moore.
Rashawn? I don't know if it's Rashawn. I'll have to look that up.
I think it is.
All great receivers. Great combo of speed, size. I actually really question when are we going to start looking at their receivers. Rondale Moore. That's what his name is now. It comes to me. I'm questioning when we're going to finally start comparing the Cardinals receivers to how the same light we put the Cowboys receivers in or the Tampa Bay receivers in, because they're all really good. Christian Kirk is a great receiver, DeAndre Hopkins is obviously DeAndre Hopkins, and Rondale Moore has been fantastic these first 2 weeks of the season. And obviously Kyler pulling the strings. The only question I have is how long do they keep this Cliff Kingsbury thing going? Because I feel like it has to come to an end. It feels like this team is primed for success. It seems like they're right on the precipice of being a real, true contender. And they have to really decide, is he the coach to bring them to that success? Is he the guy that's going to get them there? I personally don't think so. I have to give him credit. It was I mean, I would assume it was his idea to go with his guy in the draft. Right after they drafted Josh Rosen the year before, they decide this isn't going to work. They turn around, they draft Kyler Murray. Great decision in the long run. They'll never regret it. And it's a decision that not many teams in the NFL make. You see a lot of times they kind of just stick with the guy, stick with that guy, stick with the guy, and keep running their head into the same wall. But outside of that decision, has he only been holding them back? We've seen this before from the Cardinals where they start out really high. Last season, what did they start out? Yeah, they started out 6-3 in weeks 1 through 10. That week 10 matchup was Cardinals-Bills. That's when the Hail Murray came. The Hail Mary that ended the game to DeAndre Hopkins. After that play, after that game, they went 2-5 in weeks 11 through 17 and missed the playoffs, went 8-8. That's coaching. Like that, teams are going to go on runs. You're going to have, and at the same time, teams are going to go through slumps. Very few teams are built to win every single game of the year. Any NFL team is going to go through a slump, a losing streak. It's going to happen. It's how you rebound from that. And the Cardinals just never rebounded from that slump. I think that's on Cliff Kingsbury, and I just question if he's the guy going forward. I don't know what you think on that.
I think you're right. I don't think Kingsbury's the guy. And this all kind of starts with their, I don't want to say total abandonment of the run game, but that's part of it, right? You have David Johnson there before. He gets hurt. They ship him in the trade with DeAndre Hopkins. Again, something they will never regret. Then they go out and they get Kenyon Drake from Miami partway through last season, I believe. And he had an incredible resurgence in Arizona. He had great games. He had a few 100-yard rushing games, I think. And then they let him go at the end of last season in the preseason this year. And I think that's a huge thing. And we see it in college a lot. Cliff Kingsbury actually had this issue in college, coaching Texas Tech, where he was all air raid all the time, didn't have a run game, and he got in those troubles, right? They'd win the first stretch of the season. Guys aren't ready to be running all over the field in weeks 1 through 5, 6. They're still, getting acclimated to game time. And then people lock onto it. They start playing deep zones. They start, press man, whatever you want to do. And then you have to come back at some point to the run game. I think that's one of the things that's going to kill the Cardinals is they don't have that right now. They don't have a strong run game. They don't have a number one running back right now. And it's going to come down to that later in the season. And obviously that receiving core is going to be incredible. But when you get deeper into the season and teams start figuring out, okay, if we play the Chiefs, it happened to the Chiefs. All right, we're going to lock down, right, D-Hop. We're going to double D-Hop. Then we're going to let guys attempt to beat us everywhere else on the field. And if they don't have a run game, you're going to get in trouble. And I think that's what's going to kill Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona is his total reliance on air raid offense. And it's just not going to get them where they need to be. And like I said, we saw the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. They didn't have a running game. The Bucs just came after them, and that was that, right? And so that's kind of what we're looking at in Arizona right now, too.
Yeah, I understand they don't have a running game, and that's got to be fixed. And you're right that late in season, that stuff matters. The teams that run the ball well do well. You see Tennessee. When does Tennessee reach their best? After week 12 is when they really start to kick it into high gear because they can just run all over teams. And like you said, guys aren't really prepared to run all over the field with these receivers weeks 1 through 8. And, it's a slow start to the year. But the reverse of that happens in the later stages of the season where the linemen are now, they're 14 weeks in, they're battered, they're bruised, they're injured. And they don't really want to tackle the 225-pound Derrick Henry or whatever he is. He's probably more than that. I don't think I'd want to tackle the 230-pound Derrick Henry in week 16 when my team is, 4-12. I don't think I'd want to do that. And like you said, the passing defense steps up later in the season because I don't know what it is, but I think it's the colder months mean less passing because it's a lot harder to catch a ball when your hands are freezing cold than it is when it's 85 degrees and sunny. And of course, in Arizona, they're never going to have that problem of it being 35 degrees. But they're going to travel elsewhere. They got people in the NFC they're going to have to travel to. What if Arizona goes to the playoffs, has to travel to Green Bay in the middle of December, January? That's not going to be a fun time for them. And you can't pass the ball. I don't care how good your passing offense is. No passing offense goes to Green Bay in January and it has a great day. It just doesn't happen. You have to be able to run the ball effectively. And you're right. That's going to cause the end of them. I just also don't think that Cliff Kingsbury, he deserves some credit, right, for how well the offense is going and putting Kyler Murray in a position to succeed. And not all the mistakes that happened on offense are his fault. Like I said, Kyler Murray makes some questionable decisions. He's kind of risky with the ball. He needs to learn when to throw it away. Those are all drive killers. Like we said before, you take that with a special player. When someone makes exceptional plays, they also make exceptional mistakes. It's going to happen, but it's something you take. But I think Cliff is best suited. If Cliff Kingsbury was an offensive coordinator, he'd be the best offensive coordinator in the league. For what they've done with the Arizona offense, he would be up there at least. Cliff Kingsbury as a head coach, he's probably one of the weaker head coaches in the league, and that's just a fact of the matter. That defense added J.J. Watt in the offseason, and they can't stop Kirk Cousins. I know J.J. Watt's not the same player he was years ago, but J.J. Watt's still an effective player. So I question it. I really do question how far can Arizona go. Kyler Murray, to sum up this whole thing, is incredible, and I don't think there's any doubt in that. But how far can Arizona go playing the way they've been playing? Like I said, we saw it before. 6-3, weeks 1 through 10. 2-5, weeks 11 through 17. You know when it starts getting cold? Weeks 11 through 17. That's just what happens. Unacceptable to finish 8-8 and miss the playoffs after starting 6-3. I think we can both agree on that. All right. Do you got anything else to say on that?
No, not really. I mean, we're going to see where Arizona goes with this. I hope they do well. I mean, I think they have a good chance of making out of the NFC West. But like you said, if they have to go somewhere cold in January, we might be saying different things about the Cardinals.
Right. Side note, when I was watching the game highlights for this, Gus Johnson is an incredible announcer. Like, he really loves the game and shows it too. I know you've got your hot takes on announcers, but I really like Gus Johnson. I think he's great. It shows real passion for the game. Okay, so second and goal, Chiefs versus Ravens, Sunday Night Football. Great game, lots of ups and downs. Connor, just overall, your biggest takeaway from the game?
Lamar gets a win against the Chiefs. I think that's the biggest thing for everybody. I think a lot of people have been looking for a true rivalry to start between these two, especially, the Mahomes-Lamar thing. They came out this week and they're like, oh, it's not about the rivalry. They're going to play how they're going to play. I think if you're a football fan, this is huge. I think people want the next Peyton Brady rivalry in the NFL, somewhere we're going to see for years those two guys going toe-to-toe. Hopefully battling for, Super Bowl appearances out of the AFC. I think that's what everyone is looking for. I know we're going to throw the Bills in there because I don't think anyone doubts what Josh Allen can do, but I think a lot of people want to see the Brady-Peyton rivalry style renewed in Mahomes-Lamar. Lamar has another incredible game, 200-plus yards throwing, 100-plus yards rushing. He, wills that offense to a win. He does throw 2 picks, but that's kind of, it's whatever at this point. We know it's going to happen. And he still wins the game, right? So that's the biggest thing for me. He goes from 0-3. He's now 3-1 against the Chiefs. And I'm excited to see how it goes from here.
Yeah, I really like this matchup, the Chiefs versus the Ravens, for one huge reason is because it's kind of 2 contrasting play styles within the same style. The Chiefs obviously very pass happy, very pass forward. Just how many yards can you rack up in the passing category? The Ravens very run forward, run heavy. but they're both the same in the sense that they both run through the quarterback. The quarterback is the main cog in the machine. Chiefs, none of that works without Patrick Mahomes. Ravens, none of the stuff they would do works without Lamar Jackson. So it's kind of two contrasting play styles, but run through the same idea of just the quarterback is the offense. Lamar was incredible that game. I'm not going to get super into it. I had that whole rant last week. I don't need to get into it again. But the resilience he showed in this game was really, really exceptional. He, like you said, he threw those 2 picks early. One of them looks like Sammy Watkins slipped. The other one was just a bad throw. But the first one where Sammy Watkins slips is a pick 6 to start the game. And you texted me at the time. You were like, you can't have these sorts of plays against the Kansas City Chiefs. You can't give them free points. And he seemingly did that twice very early into the game, the first quarter. Throws 2 picks and gives the Chiefs free opportunities at points. And at one point, one of them just free points on the defensive side. And you're thinking at that point, once he throws that second pick, this is over. Like we've still got a long ways to go, but it's done. Like they're not going to bounce back. You can't give the Chiefs those opportunities. Chiefs scored. I would like to know the Chiefs' record under Patrick Mahomes when they score a defensive touchdown because it's probably pretty good. But he showed resilience and kind of just never stopped fighting, and that's something that we've liked with Lamar, right? Is that he just doesn't stop. He doesn't quit. When a lot of people. I mean, if he just, after that second interception, said, you know what, not my game, not our game, we're already we put ourselves in too big of a hole, let's just kind of survive for the next week. No, I don't think anybody would have blamed him. He would have gotten ridiculed for the 2 picks, but nobody would have blamed him. Ironically enough, the game turns on Mahomes' interception, and it almost seemed like his interception mattered more than Lamar's too, just because of time and game situations later in the game. Ravens are starting to make a push to come back, and he just has what was a really bad throw. And if 31 other quarterbacks in the league do that, specifically a handful of them that get criticized all the time, Baker did almost the exact same throw at the end of the game, week 1. If Lamar Jackson does that throw, the one where he's running and gets tackled from behind and kind of throws while he's falling. He did it in the Super Bowl, and it almost resulted in a touchdown. He threw it 40 yards down the field. Very impressive. But Baker did the same exact throw last week, and people were like, what the hell is this guy doing? What is he thinking? It just seemed to matter more when he did that. And the game turned, and it was just, at that point, you knew Ravens were going to score. They were going to take the lead. Like, it was all Ravens. Didn't know that it would end up winning them the game because obviously Chiefs get the ball late and Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbles on that last possession. Still confused as to why the Chiefs ran the ball there. But it happened. Ravens walk away with a win. Tough win. My brother said after the game he didn't understand why the Ravens were celebrating like it was a Super Bowl because it's a big win. It's a big win. Anytime you beat the Chiefs is a big win, especially if you're a playoff contender. Anytime you beat the Chiefs is a big win because they're perennial Super Bowl contenders at this point with Patrick Mahomes. So it showed that they can compete with them. One player in particular stood out to me in this game. First and goal, early in the fourth quarter, the Ravens run read option right, and Lamar keeps the ball. And he ends up beating the linebacker on the outside and reaches for the pylon and gets the score, makes 35-30. I watched that play in real time, and I watched it on the replay, and I had the same reaction at both times. There are not many players that could have made that play because it's not just about beating the linebacker to the outside and scoring. It's how it happened. The Chiefs actually played a great defense on that play and read it really well. Played good contain. 2 players contained Lamar, so he shouldn't have even kept it. It was actually probably the wrong read. But they just couldn't stop him. He was just too good. And he ends up beating the guy outside. The guy the guy does everything right. The linebacker makes him swing it way outside, pushes him to the sideline. Looks like they're going to lose yards. And Lamar just, at the last second, cuts in, dives, stretches, hits the pylon, scores. I struggle to think of, 3 players in NFL history that can make that play. You might say Kyler Murray could, but at Kyler Murray's size, can he reach the pylon? Can he do that sort of thing? And he's not quite as fast as Lamar. not many players could do that, and that was really special. And that's when I talked about last segment about the special players do special things. That was a special play by a special player, and it set the tone for the rest of the game. And you saw it late fourth quarter. They have the ball after the Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumble, 4th and 1, and John Harbaugh calls Lamar's number. Lamar calls his own number. Whatever one happened, and they secure the win. And he gets the first down. They secure the win. Special players do special things, and Lamar was really special this game. Patrick Mahomes was too. Patrick Mahomes was fantastic and really only made one mistake the whole game. Not a fair result for him because Patrick Mahomes probably played a little bit better than Lamar. Lamar actually we saw 2 interceptions. Lamar actually made a couple more mistakes. But like I said, it's 2 special players going at each other. And I just love the matchup. I really do. I love the matchup.
Yeah, I think another big thing out of this game, and this is obviously Lamar has another great game, that Chiefs offense is finally really coming together with all the injuries they've had. I think a lot of teams, especially the Ravens, when the Ravens will obviously see the Chiefs again later in the season, in the playoffs, that Chiefs defense, with the exception of Tyrann Mathieu and Sorensen, looks worse each time I watch them play. I understand that rookie linebacker had a great game, whatever his name was, Adam Mizzou. He had an awesome game. The biggest mistake the Chiefs made coming into the season on defense was putting Chris Jones at defensive end. I don't know why they did that. I don't know what the thinking behind that decision was, but it was a terrible call in Kansas City. He is built to stop the run, an interior lineman who is designed to stop the run. And the fact that he is ineffective on the edge. He's not fast. He's a huge dude. He's strong. He's powerful. He is not fast enough to be on the edge out there for Kansas City. And that's a huge thing for them. And people now know, hey, if we're going to run read option, we read Chris Jones now, one of the slowest guys on that defense. And we can now read him to stretch runs outside. And no one's scared of running up the middle anymore. You're not scared about getting bull rushed. You're not scared of, having to double team the middle because Chris Jones is out there. And if you have a pretty solid tackle, you're going to be able to handle it. Yeah, he's probably going to get a few sacks and some pressures, but you're not worried about 6'6", 2 something, if not 300 pounds, Chris Jones coming dead down the line at your 6'1", 330-pound center, right? He's out there on the edge. You're not really worried. He's not going to make a blow-by play. And that's one of the big things for that Chiefs defense. They just keep making these little mistakes that are going to keep getting them in trouble. And we saw it. Lamar runs around the edge. I think he did it 2 or 3 times. And that's the thing. You can't keep making these mistakes and being like, okay, we're going to be fine because we have this offense. Yes, that offense is going to win you games, but also, just like the Ravens did and the Titans did it too to extent last year, if they can get the ball, hold on to it, and run it down your throat all game, the Chiefs aren't going to stop you on defense. It's just not going to happen. And I think that's the biggest thing for the Ravens to take out of this game is, okay, we have the recipe to beat the Chiefs now, right? Tampa figured it out in the Super Bowl. The Raiders figured it out last year. And people are starting to get that recipe. Okay, as long as we play deep on defense, they're not going to run us around. They don't have a run game. And on offense, we're just going to run it down their throat because they can't stop us. So it's very interesting to see. Great job by the Ravens for exploiting this. Excited to see where it goes from here. But yeah, great job on the Ravens for getting this win.
Yeah, I think that decision to move Chris Jones to the outside is a bad decision, but it's an especially bad decision when you play teams like the Ravens with Lamar Jackson and the Bills with Josh Allen who can run. It's an especially bad decision when you find yourself in those scenarios where your top 2 competitors have hyper mobile quarterbacks who can just flat out outrun him. I think that the Clyde Edwards-Helaire pick from last year, it's a little too early to tell, but that's going to go down as one of the all-time bad picks considering the circumstances for a Super Bowl contender. It's too early to tell for sure, and he's really young into his career, and he could get better. But I feel like it's going to go down as one of those picks that was just, what were they doing? What were they thinking? First of all, first round pick on a running back. Nobody likes that. He was a first round pick, right? He was end of the first round. So, but I don't think it'll ever get the credit for being a bad pick, because I think what's going to end up happening is he's just going to get lost in the shuffle because the Chiefs offense is going to keep on moving, whether or not they have a running back or not. They're going to put points on the board just by simple having Patrick Mahomes on the team, like just by proxy of having that. So it doesn't matter who they stick at running back. They're going to put points on the board. But that position matters in the long run because, like you said, in those games where they can't pass the ball because the team plays super, super soft coverage on them, and Tampa did it, give Travis Kelce can have 33 catches for all they care. But if they're 33 catches at 10 yards a pop, it's better than Tyreek Hill at 7 catches at 23 yards a pop. I think any team can accept that. So not having that run game ends up having consequences in the long run, even if in the short term it doesn't look like it has any effect, because they'll still put up points. They'll still be one of the higher scoring offenses in the league. But we talked about it earlier. When those big moments come, you're going to need to run the football. One thing that I thought from this game, John Harbaugh does not get enough credit for being just an exceptional coach, like just ultimate great coach. Ultimate trust in his guy at the end. I think everybody saw the clip of John Harbaugh asking Lamar if he wants to go for it. John Harbaugh already had his decision made on that, but just having trust in his guy, like being like, you want to do this, right? All-time confidence in his guy. He really decided in that moment, win or lose, he was going to live with the result of putting it in his best player's hand. And you've got to give him credit for that. Is if Lamar makes this or if he doesn't, we put it in the hands of our best player, and we're going to let our best player decide the game. And that's what happened, is their best player decided the game. He really ranks up there with the Tomlins, the Andy Reids, the Sean McVays. Obviously, Bill Belichick is in his own stratosphere. But John Harbaugh is just an all-time great coach and doesn't get enough credit for it. Completely changing his offense to fit Lamar Jackson and still being successful with it. Like, I feel like his name isn't brought up enough. We always talk about Tomlin. Hasn't had a losing season. Andy Reid, obviously, is Andy Reid, deserves all the credit in the world because he's an incredible coach. Harbaugh is right there with him. He's just an exceptional, exceptional coach. Finally, my last 2 points on this. The Chiefs, looking ahead, they'll bounce back. They'll be better. I mean, they've faced 2 tough opponents to start the season, 2 playoff contenders and potential threats to them in the AFC. They played the Browns week 1 and won a close game. They played the Ravens week 2 and lost a close game. There's no real shame in starting 1-1 against those teams. There's no shame at all. And I think next week it might get a little bit easier for them. I forget who they're facing. I would have to bring that up, and I'll bring that up in a second. But 1-1 with those 2 first games, with that schedule to start off, not exactly in the worst position possible. And then for the Ravens, they're probably not as good as they showed yesterday, but they did show a lot of resilience. Like I said, it was good to see them get up for the big game and be able to compete with the Chiefs. That's kind of, the mark of a good team, is a team that they might not always play their best game, but they play their best games against the best teams. They wake up for those big games. And the Ravens did that yesterday. And it was good to see that they did that. Do you have any final thoughts on that?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just going to kind of be a back and forth. I really hope they meet again, maybe possibly in the AFC title game. But I think it's a very good inclination as to where the Ravens are going as a team. And I think that's the bigger takeaway of this, is how the Ravens look as a team. Everyone knows what the Chiefs are going to do. The Ravens coming in and winning a big game at home is awesome for them. So I think that's what they're going to take away from this. And what everyone's going to take away from this is, okay, the Ravens know how to fight back and win games. And that's especially against the Chiefs. And I think that's what we're going to look at going forward.
Right. The Lamar can't win from behind narrative kind of took a hit yesterday because they played from behind pretty much the whole game. The Chiefs' next 5 games are against the Chargers, the Eagles, the Bills, the football team, and the Titans. So kind of a little bit of a break with the Chargers. Chargers are a better team this year than they were last year, but Chiefs should still beat them. They should beat the Eagles. And then you got another tough stretch of games. The Bills are a good team. Washington, we'll see if they have Ryan Fitzpatrick back. But they've got a good defense. They're feisty. And the Titans, obviously, are a good team. So they've got a tough stretch to start the season. But a team like Kansas City, if they come out of this stretch, what are they, 1-1 now? Over those next 5 games, if they leave that in the 5-2 range, I think they take that every day of the week, and really they should be in that range because they should beat the Chargers, should beat the Eagles. Bills will be a tough game. They really should beat the football team, even if they are feisty, and the Titans will be a tough game. So just win one of those 2 tough games and just win the games you're supposed to, and they'll be in a good spot. So Chiefs are fine to start their season. Okay, let's move on to 3rd and goal. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I definitely want to touch on them today because through 2 weeks, they look just incredible. Like they look as good as they did in the Super Bowl, if not a little bit better. Connor, your thoughts on the Buccaneers so far, and then we'll get into things.
You nailed it, man. I mean, they look really, really, really good. Tom Brady throws for 5 touchdowns. That defense gets 3 interceptions on Matt Ryan. It's hard to say that they won't show up in the Super Bowl again this year. I can't be like, oh, well, there's a chance. I don't think anyone in the NFC really threatens them all that much. I haven't seen it yet. Yeah, the Packers have a bounce back game against the Lions, but I don't see it. I don't see, the Seahawks being a threat. I don't see, as good as Kyler Murray's been playing, I don't think Arizona threatens them. I think Tampa steamrolls the NFC and winds up in another Super Bowl again. And if that defense keeps playing like they are, and Tom Brady keeps being Tom Brady, it might even be not that much of a stretch to say that Tom Brady walks away with another ring. I mean, they look that good. And I know it's week 2, but when you're playing that type of offense, defense, special teams week 2, coming off a Super Bowl win, right? Everyone talks about, the Super Bowl hangover. They don't have one at all. There's nothing to suggest that they're going to slow down at all anytime soon. So it's scary to watch, man. They look that good.
Yeah. My only 2 issues with the Buccaneers really is they're not a great running team, and eventually that becomes an issue. We've talked about that earlier. But as we saw in the playoffs last year, they weren't really a great running team all year, and they turned that up for the playoffs and became at least serviceable at running the ball. And Bruce Arians' offense has never really run the ball a ton anyways. So, I mean, we shouldn't expect, 50 carries for Leonard Fournette through 2 weeks. It's just not going to happen. And the defense, I think, is a real issue. They let up 29 against the Cowboys, and then the Cowboys subsequently went on to only score 20 against the Chargers. Now, the Cowboys, I would know better than anybody else. They're an up and down team. They score 40 one week but lose 41-40, and they score 14 the next week and lose 15-14. So that's just how it works. So that could be just a fluke thing. And everybody thinks the Cowboys offense will be good. But then they also let up 21 against the Falcons this past week, and the Falcons, I think we talked about it, looked absolutely just inept after week 1. Like they looked like they couldn't move the ball at all. Matt Ryan looked old, offense looked stagnant, and they go into Tampa and they put up 21 points. It reminds me of the Chiefs from last year, where their offense was so good, like it continued to be good, but their defense really couldn't stop anyone. But no one really thought about that because their offense was so good, as the Kansas City is this year. Same deal. The issue is that Kansas City had their weaknesses exposed at the worst possible time in the Super Bowl. Tampa Bay was able to expose those weaknesses and take advantage of them and end up beating them pretty handedly in the Super Bowl. It could hurt them down the line, the defense. I don't think the running game will be so much of an issue because, like I said, they've shown proof before that they can turn that up at any time. But I think that the defense is a real problem for them and something that they're going to need to clamp down on in order to repeat as Super Bowl champions, which they have a real chance of doing. They do have a real chance of repeating anytime you have Tom Brady on your team, who, I mean, looks as good as he's ever been. Like, this is just, it's crazy at this point. It just doesn't make any sense. His throws still have zip on them. They still have speed. He's still accurate, can still throw it down the field. It's just, I really don't understand it at this point. He just doesn't age, or he ages in reverse. He really looks right now as good, if not better, than he's ever looked before. Like, he looks like 2007 Tom Brady. That's what he looks like right now. And that's not really an exaggeration. It sounds hyperbole, but it's not. He really has been that good this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, he came into that system last year and ramped it up. And then the start of this season, he looks even better. And I mean, like you said, yeah, he looks like he's throwing to Gronk and Aaron Hernandez and Randy Moss and Wes Welker again. And it gives flashbacks. And I think it's just going to, like you said, he's just going to keep rolling. Tom Brady, no matter what situation he's in, plays his game. He doesn't get thrown off. He doesn't, struggle, right? We talked about it in week 1 where the Cowboys go down, they score, and then they pan to Tom Brady on the sidelines with a minute and something seconds left. And it's the killer eyes. Yeah. And that's just how he plays. And it's going to keep going like that until either one, he decides, all right, I've had enough, or his body shuts down. And I don't think his body's going to shut down. I think eventually he's just going to be like, all right, I'm done. I did what I wanted to do. See you guys later. Bye. And I don't know when that's going to be if he keeps playing at this level. It might be, like he said, till he's 50. And who knows? We had the conversation with Brett Favre when Brett Favre said he was going to do it, and we saw the cliff. We're not seeing it. I don't know if we have it all, but it doesn't look like he's anywhere near it. So I think that offense is going to be fine. The defense will probably shore things up. They might have some issues, but I think they just keep rolling.
So that is a great segue to this. I was thinking about the whole Tom Brady thing and how he's just this good at, what is he, 44 now? And seemingly has gotten better, which is the weirdest part, is normally when there's a cliff, you see a little bit signs of it first. It's like when you approach the cliff, you can kind of see it coming a little bit, but it's still kind of hazy, especially if it's like picture this. If it's a cliff with each side and a split down the middle, and you can see the other side, but you can kind of see there's something going on in here. So you get kind of a little bit of warning. With Drew Brees, he fell off the cliff, but for years he couldn't really throw down the field. So, I mean, you could kind of see some signs. I think the
best way is not in the same, obviously they're not in the same category, but the way Big Ben is kind of going at this point, you kind of like, you saw it, and you're like, okay, when are they going to make this decision? They haven't made it, and now the Steelers are, I get it, they beat the Bills in week 1, but Big Ben is,
hasn't looked going off all season.
Yeah, is going off the deep end at this point. But you're not seeing that, right? Like, it is what it is, man. Like, it's just going to keep rolling until it isn't, and I don't think it's going to be anytime soon.
But anyway, so that brings me to this. I was thinking about it. Is quarterback the only contact sport position where a run like this can occur, where someone plays this old and looks this good at that stage in their career, where it could feasibly happen? So I was thinking about it like this. Even if a player is still good in other sports, LeBron James is a great example of this. He's 36 years old. He's still top 5 player in the league, top 3 player in the league. If you put him any lower than that, then you're just insane. But there's a clear difference in 2012 LeBron James and 2021 LeBron James, where he's not the same player. It's very clear. There's been a slight drop off. And when I say slight, I mean in the slightest bit, but you can see it. There's a visible drop off a little bit. Kobe Bryant was the same way, where for the last couple of years of his career, he was not as effective as he used to be. Even Jerry Rice in football, he was great for years and he was still good at the end, but he wasn't the same player. So is quarterback the only, I call them high contact positions where someone can look this sharp in year 20 plus? I mean, I'm not counting kickers and punters because no, you never hit a kicker or punter ever. And I know quarterbacks are protected, but they're still a contact position. You can still get hit as a quarterback and get hit pretty good as a quarterback. Is this the only position in sports where this sort of run can happen, where they're this good post year 20?
Probably. I mean, you see it a little bit in hockey. You see like Zayo Chars and Thorntons, and there's a big drop off there. They're still on teams, but they're not key pieces of teams anymore. I think it is just because, like you said, you're not going to count a kicker, you're not going to count a punter, and Tom Brady is a very special case because every time we've seen guys get to this age who are still starting caliber quarterbacks in the NFL, they aren't there anymore. They're guys who are trying to hold on to a legacy that they've created. And you're just kind of like going through the motions and being like, okay, this guy, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. We don't want to just kick him out, push him down the road and say, hey, sorry, this isn't working anymore. You want that guy to finish with the team that drafted him or finish with the team that he brought to the pinnacle of the NFL. So, but that's not the case with this. He is still pumping, he's still kicking, and I think you're right. It is the only position in a contact or collision sport where you can keep doing what you do at that age for this long.
Let me rephrase the question a little bit because I think this would be more along the lines of what I'm trying to ask is quarterback the only contact sport position where you can seemingly become better with age? Like I'll put it this way. Last year, we saw a 37-year-old win NFL MVP, Aaron Rodgers, and we saw a 44-year-old Tom Brady, obviously, win the Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP and look exceptional. Peyton Manning won MVP. The last time he won MVP, he was 38 years old. So there's a history. Drew Brees was in the conversation. Probably got the closest he's ever gotten to winning MVP. 3 years before his retirement, 2 years before his retirement. So is quarterback the only position where you seemingly there's a trend that older quarterbacks are still hyper effective and top of their game in the league? Because like I said, in the grand scheme of things like LeBron James being the exception, he's obviously still incredible, but there's been some downfall. As a quarterback, there have been quarterbacks that have, Ryan Fitzpatrick is a great example of this. He's not at the same level as those guys, but Ryan Fitzpatrick seemingly has become a very serviceable quarterback and borderline starter as he's aged. He's gotten better as he's aged. So is quarterback the only position in contact sports where that can happen?
Yeah, and I think that's a majority because more and more quarterbacks are willing to change their play style, and more coaches are willing to change their play style to fit the quarterback they have. I think this is a big thing. We'll talk about Brett Favre real quick again. Green Bay didn't want to change the way they played because Brett Favre was getting old. It was still, okay, Brett's going to run around a little bit and then huck the ball 60 yards down the field to
across
Donald
his body.
Yeah. Or whatever. And that was kind of the downfall of that. We're seeing more where these older guys can still throw the ball down the field if they need to, but you can also, all these teams are implementing running games, right? Like Leonard Fournette hasn't had an incredible time in Tampa, but he's pretty good. Aaron Jones, like all these guys are getting running games. They're getting, short passing, like Godwin's making a living down in Tampa catching shorter balls coming across the middle, right? So we're seeing more of these older quarterbacks adapt newer play styles to continue their careers and make them better because they now have multi-layered offenses. It's not this, offenses of 10 years ago where it's, all right, we got this 6'5" guy standing out there by himself on the edge of the field. You're going to bomb it to him 50 yards every 3 plays, right? We don't see that a ton anymore. Obviously, the Chiefs are their own thing. We don't really talk about them in this conversation. But these older quarterbacks are going, okay, I now have, okay, I can still make that 50-yard throw if I need to, but I also can make the 20-yard throw, the 15-yard throw, the 10-yard throw, the 5-yard throw. And I have some guys who can run, catch balls out of the backfield behind me. And I think that's the biggest reason you're seeing these quarterbacks get better with age, because they are willing to accept different offensive styles to continue their career and make them better, because they're more threatening, because they have more tools. They have the game knowledge. They have this understanding of the game at this point that these younger guys just don't have. And that's why you're seeing them continue to be great 10, 15, 20 years into their careers.
Right. I think that a big reason that goes into that, and I do believe that quarterback is the only contact sport position. I say contact sport because we've seen things like MLB pitchers look really good in their old age, but they don't get hit, I think it's because quarterback is such a mental game. Like it's all up here. Very little of the quarterback game actually comes from your talent. Now, your talent plays a big role, but knowing Drew Brees was a prime example of this. Drew Brees was not some kind of exceptional, can throw the ball 53 yards down the field arm talent at 60 yards down the field. Especially at the end of his career, he couldn't throw the ball 15 yards down the field. But he was so smart and just knew how everything was going to happen, where it was going to go, and he was accurate. He had that talent. But quarterback is such a mental game. If you understand what you're looking at, you become better at it. And that's really the only position I can think of in sports where that's the case. Basketball, a little bit, if you're like the point guard, which LeBron James has kind of morphed into the point guard as his career went on. He's become more of that playmaking role, where it's just understanding what you're looking at and how to dissect it. But quarterback in the biggest way is a mental game. And I think that's why we've seen it with Big Ben and Peyton Manning, and Drew Brees, where they were good, and all of a sudden, they were like we talked about before, where there's that little bit of decline, but not a ton, still kind of keeping it level, and then it's just cliff. And I think that's because it's such a brain game, it's such a mental game. You can still have Peyton Manning still understands the game better than anybody else ever could, and can dissect a defense better than 99.9% of the population of the world could ever do. He just, once you lose the physical ability to do that, that's when the cliff comes. So Peyton Manning in his last year still understood the game, could still read the game, but did not have the actual ability to do that. And I think that's why we see these cliffs with quarterbacks. And I think Tom Brady is just the prime example of what if the cliff never comes? What if a guy takes care of his body so well that proverbial cliff just never arrives? What if he just stays good? And that's how it's been. Yeah. He's just stayed good.
What did he say today? He eats like 50 almonds a day or something.
Like
his new diet's like almonds, crazy amount of almonds. Yeah, and that's how it is. If it doesn't come, what happens then? We haven't seen it before. We haven't seen someone just walk past the cliff and just keep going. It hasn't happened yet. So
right, we've seen guys leave before the cliff. We've never seen guys just completely not have a cliff. John Elway left before the cliff. He never got the chance to see the cliff. Peyton Manning fell off the cliff. Drew Brees fell off the cliff. What happens if the guy just fall off the cliff, what happens if the cliff just never comes? We haven't seen it, and Tom Brady's the experiment for that. What happens if the cliff just never comes? Okay, that's all I had to say about that. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No.
Moving on, 4th and goal. Last topic of the day. We got the best and worst of the week. So I'll let you go first. Connor, let's start with... You want to start with the good or the bad?
Let's talk about the bad, because my good is something we've already talked about, because I think it is very important.
Okay, so
The
your
bad
worst
week
player.
is famous Jameis is back. He goes out.
That's not fair.
He yes, it is. He goes out, absolutely embarrasses Green Bay, and then comes back, plays Carolina, and goes 11 for 22 for 111 yards and 2 picks.
Was it 2 picks? I thought it was 1 pick.
It was 2 picks.
Okay. Yeah, and that 1 pick he had deep was just the worst throw I've ever seen in my life. That was questionable, to say the least.
So it's just this whole thing of like, we watch week 1 and we're like, oh my god, Jameis Winston is the answer in New Orleans. Like, he blows the Packers out of the water. This is, wow. This is, holy crap. Like, the Saints made the right decision. They have a guy who can throw the ball. This is awesome. And then they go play Carolina, and he becomes the Jameis Winston of Tampa again. And you just look and go, what happened? Like, what? Why is this? Like, how did you go from crushing the Packers, who have a very good defense, with the players they have? That defense is really good. I never thought that the Panthers were going to come out and just absolutely obliterate the Saints. But it's just like, oh, okay, well, here we go. Jameis is back. Jameis is going to be Jameis, and we're back to square one. Maybe he picks it up again, but after this game, it's not. I was not impressed with what happened on Sunday.
So I was gonna say my worst next, but I feel like I have to go with my best, because my best is the Carolina Panthers. I think the Carolina Panthers look like a legitimate playoff team this year. And by playoff team, I mean they can make the playoffs. They won't go very far in them, but they will make the playoffs. They've scored 45 total points on the year, and only let up 21. So it's a plus 24 point differential. That's only 1 point worse than the Buccaneers, who we just said are unbeatable, unstoppable, could go back to the Super Bowl. The Bucs are plus 25. And by the way, have let up a lot more points than the Carolina Panthers. They have the least amount of points let up by anyone in the league. They did play the Jets week 1, so we have to throw that out there. But they actually let up more points to the New York Jets and Zach Wilson than they did the New Orleans Saints, who are coached by Sean Payton. And Sam Darnold looks pretty good. I've been really impressed by Sam Darnold this season.
And I don't know what happened to the Jets in week 2. So
don't get into that, because that's my worst. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
So, you're right. The Panthers look really good. Sam Darnold, I think, is where he needs to be. He's in an offense that fits him now, finally. He has who is looking like, I don't think anyone's going to say Christian McCaffrey's in the top 2 running back in the NFL, whichever spot you put him in.
Right.
That receiving core is getting really, really, really good. And Sam Darnold just looks like how I think everyone wanted him to look with the Jets. He's making the throws. He's not making bad decisions. He's making the right reads now. And the defense, they had J.C. Horn and a couple other guys, and they look really, really good. Yeah.
Brian Burns off the end is so good.
So it's kind of like, they are doing incredibly, but also like the Saints, you can't have that happen. You can't be completely shut down after throwing up that many points against the Packers in week 1.
Right.
But anyway, that's
Yeah, I think Darnold falls in that category that I was talking about earlier with the Bakers, the Derek Carrs, of just the quarterback that he's not going to do anything that's going to blow your mind. You're not, he might have a great play every once in a while, but Sam Darnold isn't going to consistently show you incredible, but he's going to show you very good. He can be a very good quarterback. If he keeps up this pace. And that's really all the Panthers need, because their defense is good. And as long as their offense puts 20 to 27 points on the board, they'll be in a lot of games, if not winning a lot of games. So I think what we'll do is I'll do my worst next so we can end on a best, end on a good note. My worst of the week, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, was Zach Wilson, who has been so bad to start his career. You said it last week that he would not be a good quarterback in the NFL. And I wasn't super down on him after last week like you were, but this week let's just say I am. So thus far he's 55% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and you don't really want to count him out because he's 2 games into his NFL career, so it's unfair. But there were some throws, especially his 3rd interception against the Patriots, where you just watched that throw and you were like, what did you see there? Like, what were you looking at? Defender was there the whole time. At no point was his receiver ever open. The defender could have left the stadium, come back, left the stadium, went and got food, come back, and still covered the receiver because that's how not open he was. And you throw it there. And I mean, the Pats do this to everyone, so it could be an overreaction, but Zach Wilson has not looked good. And that begs the question of the second guy off the board, how he's fared. So basically, I went back and looked at since 1998, which was the Peyton Manning Ryan Leaf draft. Basically, times where quarterbacks were consensus 1-2 and were taken 1-2 in the draft. And here's how it goes. So obviously, 98, Peyton Manning is taken first, becomes Peyton Manning, in case you haven't heard of him. Ryan Leaf becomes Ryan Leaf, in case you haven't heard of him. Not very good in the league. 1999, Tim Couch is taken first overall. Not a great quarterback by any means. And Donovan McNabb is taken second overall. Pretty good quarterback in the league. Not necessarily a Hall of Famer, but a very good quarterback. McNabb was kind of the Patrick Mahomes before Patrick Mahomes, not on the same level, Then in 2012, Andrew Luck is taken first overall. Obviously, he retires early, but no one's going to question that Andrew Luck was an incredible quarterback. He left the league for 2 years, came back, and won Comeback Player of the Year and brought the Colts to, 11, 12 wins. He was obviously an incredible quarterback. Number 2 is Robert Griffin III, who had a great rookie year, won Rookie of the Year. Hasn't really done a whole lot since, and has been kind of skipping around on teams. He was on the Ravens last year. I don't know where he is now. I don't know if he's still on the Ravens.
He is begging the football team to sign him as their starting quarterback. Right. He's making social posts to try and get signed as the starter in Washington. So that tells you how that's gone.
Yeah, it does. 2015, Jameis Winston is taken first overall. And say what you want about Jameis Winston, he has not by any means been an incredible quarterback, but he's still a starter on a team in the NFL. And maybe not the worst starter on a team in the NFL. And Marcus Mariota is taken second overall, and he is a backup for the Raiders, and no team in the NFL would ever put him as starter, except for the Raiders, because John Gruden perennially wants to bench Derek Carr. And then in 2016, Jared Goff was taken first overall, and Carson Wentz is taken second, and neither of those guys have had incredible careers, but Jared Goff's been to a Super Bowl,
Carson Wentz just sprained both of his ankles.
At least. So, and then obviously this past year, Trevor Lawrence taken 1-1. I know he hasn't had the best start to the year, but I don't think anyone thinks that Trevor Lawrence is going to not be for good.
The Jets.
Yeah. So. And Zach Wilson is taken 2 and has looked absolutely terrible. So, I mean, just long story short, in a extrapolation of this number 2 overall, the guy taken second, Zach Wilson is looking like he falls right in line with the rest of them. Obviously, I had some stretches in there. Goff and Wentz, neither of them has really been great. But, the Manning Leaf comparison, the Luck Robert Griffin comparison, even the Jameis Winston Marcus Mariota comparison, not that far off. He does not look good at all.
Yeah. And I know people say, oh, he's a rookie, that, this, that, and the other thing. Most of those throws he made this last Sunday were just bad in general. Not that like, oh, he can build his vision of the field later on, or like he'll be able to read coverages. They were just horrible throws,
Like just bad,
and
bad.
They were just bad throws, and that's not something you can really. It's something you can teach to an extent, but that's one of those things where a quarterback just has to have. Like, you have to be able to see the field. You have to be able to see coverages. You have to be able to know when your guy's going to get open and how they're going to get open. And from that game, and given that Patriots secondary is nothing to, talk down upon.
Right.
Even
the Patriots do this to all young quarterbacks.
Right. So. They just make all young quarterbacks look bad. But when you look that bad, like, everyone's making the joke about Sam Darnold, right? Like, oh, he was seeing ghosts. Like,
and everybody
Zach
after
Wilson
Sam Darnold had that, they were all over him.
Yeah.
They said he's so bad. Like, it's only fair to say that about Zach Wilson.
Exactly. But Zach Wilson looks worse than Sam Darnold did. Like,
Sam Darnold at least showed flashes every once in a while where you were like, okay,
Sam
there's
Darnold,
something there.
Solid. And Zach Wilson was another one of those guys that didn't play in a great conference in college. Everyone hyped him up. And then all of a sudden he comes to the NFL and, like, you're like, what happened? Right? Like, I get it. The ACC isn't great, but Trevor Lawrence ran camp, run amok down there. Mac Jones comes out of the SEC, perennially the greatest, conference in college football, right? Like, even, Trey Lance and Justin Fields come out of the Big Ten, arguably one of the hardest defensive conferences to play out of. Wilson played at BYU, right? Like, how many players can you name from BYU in the NFL? And you can't say Taysom. There's two other guys that I can name. I think there's a few offensive linemen. The only two other guys I know in the NFL from BYU are Taysom Hill and Sorensen.
Oh, that's right. Sorensen is from BYU. That's right.
So that's the kind of thing. Like, you play at BYU, you play not great teams, and then people, like, they hype it up, and then you're like, well, you have to think about it. I get it. It's a totally different game. I mean, Urban Meyer even said it. He said, who did he tell that to? He was like, oh, playing in the NFL is like playing Alabama every week.
Every week, yeah. I forget who he said it to, but.
And so it's this thing where it's like, okay, there's looking bad because you play for the Jets, and then there's looking bad because you're not good.
Yeah.
If Zach Wilson doesn't turn around soon, he's just going to be bad because he's bad, not bad because he plays for the Jets.
He's got to show some kind of flashes, and you brought it up, and it's a really important point, is that Trevor Lawrence is going to get the benefit of the doubt because he played for Clemson, played real meaningful games against Alabama. So playing Alabama every week isn't really something to him because he's played them before. Justin Fields is going to get the benefit of the doubt. Played in a great conference, played really tough opponents. Say what you want about Michigan, Wisconsin. They're legit football schools, Mac Jones played at Alabama. You can see all the competition he's been in. I know Alabama rules the SEC, but the SEC's got some real teams in it. It's the Trey Lance. It's the Zach Wilsons. They're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. It's going to be, you have to show something early. Because those other guys, we've seen them play tough competition. We've seen them do it, and we've seen them succeed in it. These two guys we haven't. Trey Lance hasn't seen the field yet. Probably a smart move on Kyle Shanahan's part. And Zach Wilson has not looked good. And granted, like you said, he does play for the Jets. And you're going to look bad playing quarterback just by proxy of playing for the Jets. It's going to happen. But you need to show something. You need to show something. Go ahead, Connor. You're best. Let's end on a good note.
I know we talked about a ton this episode, but Lamar beating the Chiefs is huge. I think a lot of people think it's just like, oh, he finally got a win. Being down 0-3 in your career to a team, especially a team as good as the Chiefs, and coming out with a statement win like they did, I get it, it's week 2 in the NFL, is huge, no matter what team you are. But the Ravens doing it, especially getting a win in front of that home crowd in Baltimore and showing the confidence they had in all three aspects, special teams, offense, and defense against the Chiefs, I think is the biggest thing of week 2. And them being able to do that, taking that away, taking it into week 3 and even further into the season, knowing like, hey guys, we are going to see them again late in the season. We know we can beat them because we did. Not this, oh, we got close anymore. It's we beat them. We did it at home. We have the recipe to do it again is the biggest thing out of week 2.
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked about it at length, but it was a huge, huge win. Like you said, super important to have that win. Going into playoffs, Chiefs are the best team the Ravens are going to face. Not even close, you know, in the AFC. So in order to be able to take that win, and a win where you won from behind, something that everybody said the Ravens cannot do with Lamar Jackson, you won from behind against the Kansas City Chiefs, which are the worst team in the NFL to fall behind on. To do that, massive for the confidence of the Ravens, that whole organization, and Lamar Jackson in particular going forward. And I really am hoping for the big playoff win by Lamar this year. I want to see it happen because he has to take that step. He has to take that next step. But yeah, huge. That was a good one to end on. So that was the last down. We're now, you punched it in. You got to either, so Connor's going to choose here to either kick the extra point, which was a prediction, which I had to go back to last week's episode because I forgot what your prediction was. But I'm sorry, buddy. You have now started the season 0-2 on predictions and 0-2.
Oh, I lost again.
Yeah, and 0-2 in going for 2.
Yeah.
So basically, his prediction last week was that the Rams would keep rolling, which they won. But then I forced it out of you because I was kind of a cop-out. I forced you to say how much they would win by, and that would be your prediction. They had to win by 13 or more.
Barely beat the Colts.
They won by 3. Yeah, so really tough. I don't know why you set the bar so high. I think I said on last episode I would have put it at like 6, you know. But so he's gonna choose here to either kick the extra point, which is he'll give another prediction and hopefully get something right eventually, or he'll choose to go for 2, in which he has to answer a trivia question that I have prepared here for him. So
let's go trivia. I don't think I'm going to get any of these right.
This is good.
We're gonna have to go for 2.
I think you can. I think you can get this one. All right. So, your trivia question. I've talked about it before, where the Panthers have a plus 24 point differential. They're up there in point differential in the league, but there are 2 divisions in football that have every team in them with a positive point differential. So, in other words, their points for. If you subtract their points against from their points for, they end up with a positive number. There are 2 divisions in football where every team in that division has a positive point differential. What are those 2 divisions?
The NFC West.
That is one.
And
You're halfway there.
The NFC East?
I'm sorry, but that second one is wrong. So, the answer to the question is the NFC West and the AFC West. Both have positive point differentials. And you know what's even more surprising about that? You know who the 2 lowest point differentials are across all 8 teams in those 2 divisions? The Chargers at +1 and the Chiefs at +3.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 lowest ones. And then the Seahawks are +9. But I think it's something crazy. Let's see if I can grab my phone real quick. Great podcasting moment to not be prepared for this. But the Chiefs are +3. The Chargers are +1. The Seahawks are +9. And then I believe everyone else is like +20 or higher. The Broncos are +24. Who knew? You know? The Raiders are +15. And then the Niners are +14. The Cardinals are +26. and the Rams are plus 23. So, naturally, the Broncos have a better point differential than the freaking Los Angeles Rams. So, you go 0 for 3 on trivia.
Surprise, surprise.
But for the sake of you gotta get a win on the board, I'll allow you to put a prediction anyways. And if you get it right, tell you what, if you get it right, it'll count towards your record for predictions. If you don't get it right, we just will pretend like it never even happened. I'll offer this one time and one time only. This is your one chance. If you lose this, then you don't get any more like freebies to try and get a point.
I feel like if I get this one wrong, I should just give up. I mean, it's kind of not great at this point. Prediction for next week. Let me look at the schedule for next week really quick and kind of figure out where I want to go with this because there are big games.
Packers versus Niners on Sunday Night Football. Rams versus Bucks is the afternoon game. Let's see. We have Browns Bears, Justin Fields first start. Chargers Chiefs, Saints Patriots.
Oh, I hope I get that game because I'll be very excited. Well, I won't even be able to watch it because I'll be working. So it's not like it really matters anyway. You're not going to like this one.
You're going to do something about the Cowboys Eagles.
The Eagles beat the Cowboys on Monday Night Football.
Okay. Well, I regret giving you that opportunity. So, Connor's prediction, Eagles will beat the Cowboys. I won't make you do a point differential on that because like last week, it was like if the Rams don't beat the Colts, what the hell is going on? But this one should be a close game. So, and right now the Cowboys are favorites. So just the fact that you chose the Eagles to win, I won't make you say by how much. All right, so that's Connor's prediction. The Eagles will beat the Cowboys. If that happens, I'm probably not going to be on the next episode because I will have shot myself. All right, that's the show. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you enjoyed, make sure to drop a like, subscribe. Go watch the first half. If you're watching the second half right now, go back and watch the first video of the first half of the episode. We had a little bit of technical difficulties with it, but we got through. We powered through. Second half of the episode went perfectly fine. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys next week.
The temptation when you get the vibration, won't do no